Okay, here we are. So, hi Arun, welcome
Good
to our
morning.
session. Good morning. So, Arun is Chief Human Resource Officer at Birlasoft, and he comes with a very vast experience within the human resource domain itself, 35 plus years of experience, and across varied functions within the HR domain. That's where he comes into picture, and I'm sure with the fireside chat conversation which we will have today, many of you would get great insights to really decide whether this is the right career track for you. If it is, then how can you prepare yourself well for the same? With that, over to you, Arun, and maybe we can start with more of a formal introduction from your end. If you can help us understand your current role at Birlasoft, your journey, and how have you really shaped different organizations over time?
Yeah. First of all, thanks, Sulbi, for having me here. Like I told you when we first spoke, that speaking to students and shaping their minds is something that's intrinsic satisfaction to me, and that's the reason why I'm here. Right. So if even about 1% of the people on the call, if they are able to make up their minds that this is it or this is surely not it, I would have kind of served the purpose. Right. Uh, But before I actually start talking about myself, I am actually thanking the Almighty that I was born about 50 years back. Things were much simpler. Life was more binary at that time, and there were few people like me who didn't fit the binary and therefore had to explore something else. So it was always be a doctor or an engineer, and if you are not, then find your way. It was always government or public service, public sector service. If not, find your way. And that's how I actually grew up. And I could actually sense the seriousness of the matter when you said that there's so many options, so many courses. Um, it's actually a tough choice when you have to make these calls, even when you actually don't know what what they entail. So,
Mhm.
my best wishes to the kids for on the call. And I do hope the next 40 odd minutes that we're spending together, you get some direction, right? I might not be the most scientific speaker, and perhaps you might get much of what I'm going to be talking on a chat GPT or a Claude. But what I will tell you comes through experience, so it's much more colored in that sense. So today I'm at Birlasoft. Birlasoft is a IT service company with about 650 odd $1 million revenue. This is referred to as a mid-tier player when compared to other large companies that you guys might hear, names like TCS, Infosys, Wipro, CTS, and the global giants like IBM, Accenture, and etc. So each of the players has a role to play in the economic value system. There are clients who prefer to play with the large players. There are clients who prefer to play with the mid tiers for the reasons of commerce, for the reasons of flexibility, for the reason of wanting to be taken care of as a special client. There are multiple reasons, and that's why you will find that there are different companies with different revenue sets still managing to thrive in the marketplace. It's always not necessary that you either have to be an extremely niche player, small and extremely narrow, or extremely large as you become broad. So therefore, lots and lots of organizations with different value proposition in the marketplace. Birlasoft is one of them.
Mhm.
We work with clients typically in the revenues range of about $2 to $10 billion, manufacturing, banking, energy, and life science clients. We offer them tech services, tech consulting, and help to manage their applications and develop bespoke as they develop newer needs to cater to their marketplace. In a manner of speaking, if you have heard this terminology before, companies like Birlasoft are typically classified as B2B, which primarily means a business caters to a business. Right? We are not directly consumer facing in that
Mhm.
sense. Okay, so
Mhm.
it's a corporate to corporate relationship. So this company is about 12,500 odd people, global. I work out of India, but my charter is to manage the talent agenda in the organization. Now, many of you must be reading about AI and all that stuff. AI is just the first of the many disruptions that this industry has seen over the last 30 years. So, what do people in HR do at a very, very high level? People in HR, first of all, work with business leaders to help define and fine tune the strategy which should be driving the organization. In that sense, they are a, a competent HR leader will find his place right next to the CEO and the CFO. Okay, so they're very, very actively involved in terms of defining the strategy and the future roadmap of organizations. Because more often than not, people play a very, very integral part of organizations today. The kind of skills that people bring to the table determine pretty much the future of the organization. And people who are HR specialists are people who can influence organizations in that particular space, right? So that's the first thing. So therefore, extremely strategic, has a seat on the table along with the CEO and the CFO, is responsible for the entire employee life cycle. So those who are not going to be entrepreneurs and actually look at organizations. So you will need to find somebody to talk to before you actually get to work in an organization, right? So that piece is called the recruitment. You know,
Mhm.
so so there every organization will have a recruitment organization whose job it is to liaise with the marketplace, identify the right kind of talent, excite them, and get them on board. Okay? So they are, if you were to just strip off the titles, these guys are actually sales guys who are selling the company's career opportunities to people who are the buyers in the marketplace. Right?
Mhm.
So recruiters are people who excite people about the value proposition of working in an organization and get them on board. So that's pretty much the first part. And then you could kind of double click on that. There'll be some zillion other subspecialties which I will not kind of bore you with. But it suffice to say that the first and the most uh, commonly known element of HR is recruitment.
Mhm.
Once people come in, then there is this whole thing about managing the employee life cycle. Right? So people will have various needs. They will there are career life defining circumstances that happen in people. They need to talk to somebody. They have career aspirations. They need to grow. The work can often get boring, so therefore there needs to be somebody who ensures that it's not all work and no play kind of situation in an organization. So that has actually over the years it has evolved into a very, very specific specialty, subspecialty in HR called employee engagement. Okay, so you will find that there are organizations which will be willing to pick up people for this particular subspecialty of HR, which will primarily manage the employee interface and ensure that their employees are talked to. And in a manner of speaking, now if you try to draw this analogy and take it to some other function, you would have heard of CRM, where there are outbound call centers. You yourself actually, if you have a phone or you have a subscription and you have a problem with that subscription, you'll call up a call center and those guys will talk to you and they will
Mhm.
help you solve the problem. And the next time you call, they will be intelligent enough to kind of connect the dots back to your previous complaint and check whether are you okay with that particular stuff and stuff like that. It is not happenstance that happens, right? There is a technology that sits behind that. There is something called CRM, which is customer relationship management, which kind of allows it to happen. So the reason why I made a mention of this is while there is no software here, or there could be or may not be a software, The employee engagement function typically functions on a similar line because they're talking to all employees at an individual level, one to one or one to many. And the efficacy of that function is when they're able to connect the dots. Right? And therefore, it is important for them to know the history of the employee, what has been that high point in that employee's life, low points, what was the last known cribs, have they been taken care of, stuff like that, so that they can actually build up the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Then there is an extremely important function, something that I'm extremely passionate about, which is performance management. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Ultimately, people come to work to learn and grow, right? Whoever that may be, whichever company that may be. How do adults grow? Adults grow by getting to do the job and learning whether they did well or not. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And therefore, they should know what is expected of them, which is in technical terminology is called goal setting. And then the people they work for should be smart enough to give these guys meaningful feedback real time, or if not real time, near real time, so that corrective actions can be done and people can improve, right? So that this whole thing about performance, so the whole thing about goal setting and then performance feedback, and then ultimately remember organizations are business entities, right? So they need to make sure that they reward appropriately and relatively. When I say relatively, it means the good performers need to be rewarded more. People who have just about plodded need to be taken appropriately. And every once in a while, not with any particular reason which can be directly attributable to individual's incompetence. Sometimes people just don't fit into the scheme of things. So
Mm-hmm.
making sure that these people are coached, counseled, and outplaced if required. So this entire performance management then becomes a very critical piece, right? Now, people today, world is kind of changing very, very dramatically. Skills are changing almost overnight, if I can be dramatic about it. So initial cycles of IT, the shelf life of skills could be as long as 5 years. It shrunk to
Mm-hmm.
about a year. And today, one really doesn't know that what is hot today runs the risk of becoming obsolete 6 months down the line.
Correct.
And therefore, there needs to be, while today's generation is fairly smart, they will find ways to upskill themselves when their heart is at it. But an organization needs to be deliberate about it. And
Correct.
therefore, training is a very, very important element. Right? And then finally, and there could be a few more others, but we'll probably let them off right now. But people need to be rewarded appropriately. The reward programs and organizations, including compensation, need to be scientifically driven and should be in tandem with what the organization's capacity to pay is.
Mm-hmm.
Depends on the kind of money the company makes and how much it is willing to kind of share. And therefore, total rewards is a extremely important total rewards, compensation, and benefits, whichever way you look at it. That's a very, very important part of the HR scheme of things.
Mm-hmm.
And somebody like me, I've had the good fortune of dirtying my hands in many of these sub channels, and after earning my badges, I have reached a level where today I work with the CXOs at Birlasoft to define the talent agenda and drive all the programs globally. Now, let me go flashback now, right to the beginning of my career, which was probably about 35 years back. We didn't have the luxury of dream catchers and surbis of the world. It was either a very compliant child who goes after what the parents say, or a rebel child which wants to do exactly the opposite of what the parents say. So I was the latter. My parents wanted me to be in the civil services,
Okay.
and for that one reason, I didn't want to be in civil services. I really didn't know what it meant, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
Um, as luck would have it, I didn't hit the jackpot in my 12th class. Therefore, I did undergrad in science because that was the next available option.
Mm-hmm.
I graduated from Delhi University, but pretty much not very, very interested in academics at that point of time. Um, and then the key driver was getting out of the house and try to find a life of our own, right? So those days, like I said, government, public service, or private service in that order, right? So I opted for public sector service. I wrote multiple exams. Those days there used to be entrance exams for public
Mm-hmm.
sectors and banks and all that stuff. So
Mm-hmm.
I wrote these exams and I cleared the first one that I cleared. I scooted. I didn't know what that company was. I didn't know the location where I was going. So I get an offer from the company. I knew the company, by the way, because I'd applied for that. It's called the Steel Authority of India Limited. It is a public sector steel making company,
Mm-hmm.
manufacturing company. But I got posted to a place called Bokaro, and I didn't know where Bokaro was. Okay, when I got that offer, but it was important to get away from home, so I took that. I go to Bokaro, and we have a fantastic induction program. They really took care of us. They taught us everything at a base level about multiple management functions, and then said, make a choice. Where do you want to be? And I chose HR because I felt not because I liked HR or it fascinated me. I chose HR because that was the only function in which I saw that engineers were not coming in. I thought
Okay.
it was a function which will give me that much more free space to work and grow.
Mm-hmm.
Because the steelmaking companies are extremely hazardous areas.
Yeah.
So that a lot of people have health complications because of which, most of them skin allergies.
Okay.
And so when they are moved out of the active production, they would go into one of the support functions, enabling
Okay.
function, right? But I didn't see too many people coming into HR. So that was my reason why I chose HR. And I think while I could make success out of it, and perhaps there's a huge element of luck there and perseverance, I think that should never be the basis on which people make career choices. But the good part was that I took it. I took to the function like fish takes to water. It was baptism by fire. I don't know how many of the kids today will relate to a word called industrial relations. It was a factory, heavily unionized. So there were struggles at the workplace every other day. You had to walk the tightrope between employees, unions, and stuff like that. But I started liking what I did, and then I
Mm-hmm.
decided, okay, this is something that I want to specialize in. Then I took a sabbatical, and that's one thing that people should remember that um, wherever you begin, you should remember that it is just the beginning. It doesn't determine where you land ultimately in life. Life gives you many, many, many corrective opportunities, and you have to just be smart enough to grab them. I grabbed one
Mm-hmm.
of them. I took a sabbatical and I went to Excel and I finished my PMR full time. And
Okay.
as a as a means of how should probably that term will also be very alien to the group on the call. You know, paid back to the company. The loyalty element, if I may.
Yeah.
I went back to Steel Authority of India Limited after my course. I did not
Okay.
participate in the campus recruitment program, even though I was in the top to 1% or less than 0.5% of the class. Okay, I was among the top three, but I didn't sit for placement because I felt I owed it to the company and I wanted to give it back something. I did 3 more years at that company and then I moved into IT services. After that, it's been a roller coaster. I did a little bit of time in the US as well, didn't like it. And then I came back to India. And I've seen many, many cycles. It's very, very normal in life to see a huge spike in terms of business cycles, fortunes, appreciation, rewards, and then there will be troughs
Yeah.
when there's a lot of despair. And then you'll once again see another spike. So I think people who will make success of their lives are people who can actually not become insane when there are those spikes and who are able to kind of handle with resolve the moments of despair. And here I am. There are few people who are willing to listen to me.
Wonderful. I think through your journey, you actually gave lot of insights to the students. Sometimes the first thing which I picked up is you kind of experimented, and once you had conviction, then you took like a formal education in the HR domain. So in a way, these days, students have the opportunity of getting practical exposure through varied internships. So that is also one way for them to know whether it is something which they should be doing long term or it is not for them. So that's one. Number two, through the HR or like through a employee life cycle, you also touched upon varied functions. I also come from a corporate background, and when I started with Fidelity in Bangalore, and we just had like few HR folks in terms of like HR business partners. And by the time I completed my corporate journey, which was from Morningstar, HR, they have like different roles, in the sense like compensations and benefit manager. Of course, like recruitment is one big part, employee engagement, and even the exit is something which a dedicated person used to handle. So the functions have evolved, and I think it also depends upon the size of organization. Sometimes one or two person might be playing this, like all different roles, and if the organization is big like Birlasoft, then there would be a dedicated large team and people taking care of different functions as such. So with
Yeah,
that,
absolutely, man.
yeah, so with that, Arun, I would want to now get to a question where the student will get some visibility into, given your experience, right? So now you would be recruiting teams, creating teams who would be ultimately helping organization grow through different HR functions, right? So now when you recruit students straight from college, right? What kind of degrees are you really looking for? Has it moved beyond MBA in HR, or is it still majorly MBA in HR? And beyond degrees, when students are being evaluated through like selection process, which may involve interview, etc., what kind of skills and qualities you're looking for the right student in terms of becoming an HR personnel as such?
Yeah. So, this qualifications that you just talked of. There are two reasons why people have these.
Mm-hmm.
One is that as people enter into different roles in organizations, these qualifications assume that people will have some threshold competencies and knowledge of different elements of the job. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
it actually doesn't kind of guarantee anything beyond an entry into the organization.
Correct.
In a manner of speaking, if I did not have that as a gate, an organization I'm talking about, then in order to play fair with the applicant population, they will actually have the entire universe to screen from.
Mm-hmm.
But the minute they say that you need to have an MBA, they filter down. The population that they need to make moves from infinite to finite.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And then they will put the next one, MBA from premier institutes. Right? What does a premier institute mean? It means nothing, right? But why do they do that? They do that so that instead of finite many, then they'll start looking at a finite few. And
Correct.
therefore, their ability to make a choice is that much comfortable to them because they are now looking at a manageable population in order to finally determine whom they want to walk through the door. Okay. And therefore, MBA. So, MBA HR is primarily because through the curriculum, people will have some knowledge. And I fear as more time elapses and as agentic AI and all become much more capable, it is possible that the content that is shared in these schools can actually be available to people free of cost on their mobile handsets or on
Mm-hmm.
the browsers of their laptops or iPads or whatever. So the schools will probably bring in some bit of experiential learning that will kind of sit on top of the content that we will get to see. But that is one of the reasons why organizations still prefer MBA when they look to hire freshers into HR. Similarly, MBA in sales and marketing if they're looking to hire people to come at the bottom of the pyramid in those functions and stuff like that. Because otherwise, everything is learning by doing, right? So people are trying
Correct.
to short circuit that that learning by doing thing by bringing people with a little bit of formal education. That was a long-winded first part to your question, but I think if you're looking at adjacencies in terms of education qualification, I think statistics and psychology. I think those two subjects are perhaps the closest adjacencies to MBA HR. If you were to expand the degree pool, if you may, I'll tell you
Mhm.
why. Because maths and statistics, I think help the HR folks in terms of specifically in terms of sub channels, total rewards.
Uh-huh.
That's
Okay.
an extremely math driven function. Okay.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah.
Then today, as HR is becoming more and more data driven, people who understand statistics and all that are probably will, and this is my hypothesis. Okay, I'm not saying that all organizations have done this already. Um, there'll be a lot of decisions that will be taken based on how particular samples behave in organizations, sample
Mm-hmm.
population, subset of people, right? And when you're trying to work through samples and trying to broad base the inferences over a larger population pool, the quality of the sample that you've drawn, the authenticity of that sample is extremely important. And how do you kind of process that data? Okay,
Mm-hmm.
and therefore, I had said, math and statistics will be the next closest adjacency.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I, I Psychology has always been a very integral part of overall HR piece. In fact, I personally believe that group theory, theories on motivation and leadership theories are the basic building blocks on which people management is built. And
Mm-hmm.
ultimately, HR is everything which is surround to people management. Right? So, um, and also, I think the other thing that is evolving as we speak is the fact that with more and more technology adoption and organizations becoming more and more self-service driven, people, there is this new concept that's coming in. People will actually need people to talk to, in the sense, not the peer group, but whenever they feel that they have issues, they have concerns, and they will need to talk to
Organizational
somebody.
psychologist.
Organizational psychologist, right? So, um, and while I don't want to make it sound extremely complex, but these sounding boards will need to be people who will be fairly professional in the way they handle this, and they should
True.
have the skill set to process the information, and therefore
100%.
psychology is kind of coming big. And truth be told, when we talk of the earliest seeding of HR in industries, actually there was industrial psychology.
Mm.
That was the
Yeah.
edifice on which how you handle people and how do you place your entire layout of the factory and all that was came out of came out of that stream. But then slowly, things got confined or consigned to common sense rather than management science. But
Mm-hmm.
as we are seeing the next wave, I think apart from MBA and HR, these two elements will surely come in. I think humanities, I really don't know how to paint humanities, but people who are from the non-science background, I think they will have a fairly huge role to play in HR. Like, while the B schools, if you look at especially the Indian B schools, I'm not talking about the international schools that you had put out there. I'm not talking about these neoliberal educational institutions, right? Classical IIMs and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at their class composition, you will still find that majority of them are engineers.
Correct.
Okay?
Till that's the case.
But you will see that you'll see the shift happening very soon, and it's already happened in what do you call it, the Ivy League colleges and equivalent, where they actually prefer students from humanities, but people who can manage the math part of it. Okay, the
Mm-hmm.
elementary math part of it, because they believe that and pardon my ignorance between the right brain and left brain, the one that is not the logic oriented piece, right? The probably that's the left brain. I do not know, but so there is one which is very good with numbers, with the logic, and
Right.
there is
I think right brain. Even I'm not so
yeah,
sure.
and then there is the other one
Yeah.
which is much more creative and stuff like that, right? So
Mm.
whichever is whichever, okay, and I need to
Mm.
be honest about it. So I think the creative mind is something that is becoming extremely welcoming in organizations. And
Mm.
there is the null hypothesis: people who do humanities out of choice probably have a much more has much more affinity to that space, and they will be actually welcomed with open arms in organizations of tomorrow. So MBHR for sure because of the content piece that I talked about. But beyond that, I think statistics and math for total rewards, and especially for any operation research kind of role that sits within HR.
Mm-hmm.
But purely psychology and humanities in general, the creative mind piece. Those will be
Okay.
the disciplines.
Yeah, that is very helpful. And before we move to skills and competencies, uh, as a follow-up to your response, Arun, now majorly is the recruitment happening after the students have completed their postgrad, or are you or organizations which you are aware of also hiring students straight after undergrad to HR disciplines? What has been the preference as of now?
I think both are happening. Both are happening. Okay. But the level at people, if an organization hires both these concurrently, then the level at which these two roles will be placed will be different.
Okay.
And the kind of role that these guys will get to do will be different. So
Help us unpack that, Arun.
yeah, let's so I would say that um in terms of let's say in terms of complexity,
Mm-hmm.
let's say in terms of complexity, um, mundaneness and stuff like that. Okay. Mm, people who are completing the postgrads, and again in postgrads you will see that if an organization hires across the tiers, okay, if they so let's say an organization hires from Excel, Simbi, okay,
Mm-hmm.
and then it also hires from, without meaning any disrespect, okay, what should I take as something which will not be affronting to people?
I think you can
Uh,
just say tier three, tier four
Tier
institute.
three, okay, if you understand tier three, okay. So tier three, okay, if they have hired from the Excels and Simbis and IAMs, if there are HR specializations there, and if they hire from tier threes, it's highly unlikely that they'll cater to the same job description.
Correct. Mm.
Um, the job description for which what that will be used to hire a grad from an Excel or a Simbi or a pure tier one kind of a campus will be slightly elevated in terms of the work that will be expected of them in the first few
Mm-hmm.
years. Of course, it is like they will converge at some point of time. I'm not saying that these are two parallel tracks that will run forever. They will converge, but the initial few years in the organization, there will be a delta in terms of the kind of work people get to do and the kind of money they get paid.
Mm-hmm.
A tier one can easily be 2x of a tier two or tier three.
Okay. Okay.
And then you should automatically you'll assume that when an organization is paying 2x or 2.5x comp, they're going to extract that much from that person. So
Mm-hmm.
therefore, the level of responsibility, the task that will come as part of that will be for much higher order. People who will come from a tier three will typically fill in roles which will probably have more transactional construct.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay, that much lesser that much lesser application of mind, though that will be an expectation of the role. But it will be safe to assume that if it's a zero sum game in terms of what the role demands, the proportion of transactional construct of the role will be much higher in case it's a tier 3 MBA. Now you extend, and let's assume now it's left shift when you look at an undergrad.
Uh-huh.
If you look at an undergrad, it's a left shift, therefore the role will be much more transactional. And so what we did not talk of, we did not talk of as a possible career option in HR was the HR shared services, which you
Mm-hmm.
alluded very briefly when you said that there are specialists to manage exits, right? Similarly, there will be specialists to manage your day one
Mm.
induction. There are
Yeah.
a whole lot of transaction elements that make up these two events in an employee's life cycle.
Yeah. Yeah.
So these are typically progressive organizations. What they do is they carve it out of the HR function, put it as HR shared services, where it
Uh-huh.
is SOP driven. It is very predictable in the way the work will be done.
Mm-hmm.
And they will typically then, when they hire, if they hire BBAs and stuff like that, or equivalents, they will start their careers from there. But
Got it.
as people earn their badges, then moving across sub channels is not that difficult. But the initial few years, they will have to they will have to weather it out. One good
Mm-hmm.
option is if people, like we talked about me, kind of taking the flavor of what I got as an experience and then decided to specialize. If let's assume people do pick up a course which probably is up their alley and
Mm-hmm.
then get an option as an undergrad to join any particular function, not necessarily HR, I would say that it's not a bad idea to do that. Do a 24 to 36 month stint. Understand what that entails. And then
Mm-hmm.
decide whether you want to get committed to that. Or in your experience, then see in those 24, 36 months, as you interface with other parts of the organization, you also start getting a sense of what is it that you would like to do? What is it that's your natural strength? There is a theory on motivation, a modern day theory, which says that it is better to do stuff which strengthens you in the sense that it gets you more excited, it gets the best out of you, rather than try to chase something which is much more generic and which everybody else wants to do. It doesn't take anybody anywhere. Okay, so those 24 to 36 months, and I'm just putting that as a number. It's there. People pursue these events in their lives with maniacal precision. If you look at a if you look at a if you look at a pie chart in a placement brochure of an IM, you will find 18 to 24-month experience will be like this big part of the pie. Because everybody, the standard formula is somehow get into an engineering college, get into an IT services company, and that's going to get challenged because not many people are going to hire people at that level. But
Mm-hmm.
hitherto, get into an IT services company, somehow manage to survive for 18 to 24 months, write a CAT, get into an IM or an Excel or whatever. And then you'll find that at the end of it, they want, out of the world kind of jobs. But everybody has a cookie cutter profile.
Mm-hmm.
Even
Mm-hmm.
if you write excellent English and you try to kind of couch whatever is actually underneath that. But the fact of
Mm-hmm.
the matter is, it's all the same.
Mm-hmm.
You have gone to one of these concentration camps in terms of 11th and 12th. You managed to
Mm-hmm.
score the 99th percentile. You cracked either the IITs or one of the colleges, got your BE somehow. Then again, you went into one concentration camp and you cracked CAT. And then
Mm-hmm.
you came, while you're coming out, you want an out of the world job. But there's hardly any differentiation between people. What will matter over a period of time is for people to actually start working on their differentiation. You talked about internships, right? Internships are a great way to seek flavor. Unfortunately, the Indian corporate is not yet ready to accept too many interns because it's an overhead. They don't know how to engage with these interns, but I think in days to come,
Uh-huh.
it might become a viable channel. So my thing is that people um, should find ways to seek paid or unpaid internships. And don't go for this 2 week and 4 week kind of stuff because you hardly can get anything in that. It's more about learning by observation and learning by doing, getting an appreciation of what this means in an organizational construct. What could it mean in terms of a career? And
Mm-hmm.
then dispassionately evaluate whether something like that will keep you excited for a long period of time. Again, it's an out of place thing to mention these days, but if one were to look at marriage as an institution, I look at the starting point of a career like commitment to a marriage.
Mm-hmm.
You need to give it time. You need to give it time. You need to live with it, and then savor what is coming out of it. It is not about one part of it could be that you can take it as dating. You just get into it, have a fling, enjoy what is coming, and then when you get bored, get out and do the next. Unfortunately, what will happen is while it might give you some real life experiences, professionally you will not be able to present a cogent story of who you are.
Correct.
Right? While this will be excusable in the first couple of years of your life, but as you evolve as a professional, there's a very important part of your personal story which needs to come out. There has to be, while
Absolutely.
every event might necessarily not be probed, or people might not want to ask you the reason for something that happened in your life, but overall you should be able to say that you had control over it, that you did not drift with what happened in your lives. Because if you are a drifter, then very few organizations will take a bet on you.
No,
It is,
absolutely.
so that's and for everybody on the call, the reference to marriage and dating was from a 60-year-old person who probably has no understanding of what it means today. So please take it in with that much pinch of salt.
No, I think it is important to hear from experienced people, especially uh, and students. Like, don't mind me saying that we live in Insta generation, right? So we are kind of getting tuned to instant outcomes, right? But careers doesn't work like that, as Arun himself really put it very nicely. Uh, in a way, experiencing things a little bit more so that you can take a call, right? A conscious call that it is something which is meant for me, not meant for me. A 30 seconds reel cannot give you that exposure. Maybe a 3 months internship can, right? So definitely that's something which students need to hear more often, Arun. So thank you so much for being so candid with the group here. I would want to get into other aspect because you touched upon technology, right? So now if we come back specifically to HR and where it functions, with the advent of AI, like what kind of changes are you seeing uh, in two ways, like the way HR functions right now, and can it really impact the demand of HR professionals in the times to come?
The impact on HR will be very similar to what the impact of this particular technology explosion, what it will have on other functions.
Okay.
Okay, so when I say that, I mean, see, the way you have to assume is that because of the want of any other word, let's say cost arbitrage
Mm-hmm.
or labor arbitrage, you had lots and lots of people. See, we have industrialized our education, right? The gate of setting up a college, getting a bunch of enthusiastic kids walk through the door, and then promise them the moon after that, and then leaving them in the lurch. The end of it is fairly industrialized, especially in India.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but still, people managed to find a toehold because we were especially in the ITS space, and today a lot in terms of the e-commerce led retail industry. There's a lot of we ourselves are a huge consumption center, right? India is because of its population, and then We have been able to capture the imagination of the world as a offshore center. So growth, even if it was 4 or 5 or 10%, it's still significantly more than a stagflated Europe and negative growth in the Americas most of
Mm-hmm.
the times. And therefore, what happened was we were able to accommodate a lot of people at the bottom of the pyramid doing very very transactional jobs.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what AI has started doing is it started challenging that strata of jobs because of automation, because the speed at which it does, because it's a no frill, no pain kind of implementation. Organizations will surely experiment with that. But the good news is that the price point at which agentic AI will be deployed in organizations is unclear to people. Okay, the
Okay.
entire ecosystem that needs to be there in terms of infrastructure on the cloud, in terms of in terms of the supercomputing chips that need to be behind that, in terms of the licensing fee that a Claude or a Perplexity or a OpenAI are going to charge
Mm-hmm.
for industrial customers is yet unclear, right?
Okay.
So, and it's a circular economy; they kind of feed each other there, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So the return on investment is not yet established, honestly. Therefore,
Okay.
it's still some years away. The small pieces of automation and some mundane stuff getting driven by agents and all will immediately happen in the next probably 6 to 12 months. But it posing a serious threat to functional experts is still some place away, some time
Okay.
away.
Okay.
It also, if you kind of super specialize in the skill that you are actually in, then there is always a room for you to exist along with the bot. So that's why people say human in the loop. If you
Uh-huh.
guys read, there will be a reference to human in the loop. So
Correct.
basically, what they're saying is that all business processes will have an element of agentification, which is calling the services of a bot, a program,
Mm-hmm.
and or probably multiple bots. But there'll always be that super specialist, functional expert, human in the loop. So I think so. But this was a very long-winded answer, like many others of mine. But I think it is, and therefore, what is important is that people need to very quickly climb out of being comfortable with the transactional element of jobs. See, I also told you that people will start with those kind of elements. That's how organizations ensure that people dirty their hands,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And that's their risk cover, that they don't expose people till they believe that they're prepared to take up higher order challenges. So therefore, I think it will be important for people to very quickly outgrow the. So they will. It's almost like they will have to live the first 2 or 3 years of their experience in a very short period of time, so that
Mm-hmm.
they are able to present themselves. Not only present themselves, but they actually are in terms of capabilities. They are already at a place which typically people have had with a 3 or 4 years of experience. So, in terms of
Mm-hmm.
the way
Okay.
they can handle scenarios and stuff like that. And for that, it
Mm-hmm.
is important that people should become comfortable with AI and not see AI as an adversary. And therefore, as
Yeah.
they learn things, whatever field of study people want to get in, it is important that people devote some time to understand AI and agentification of AI.
Mm-hmm.
And to the extent possible, pick up courses and become hands-on on what they call, what is it called? Mm, Basically, it's called
Prompt
prompt
engineering.
engineering. Prompt engineering. Prompt engineering. So basically, you should be able to write those small scripts, and it does not require any knowledge of computer science or anything. It's English,
Yeah.
but you should be able to write that to get the bot to do something that you wish it to do. So in your own functional area, you should start getting that comfort, because people will expect that if you get a chance to get into the career space, you will be not starting from scratch, but you will be able to use these elements to see yourself as a person of higher order skills. So I think um, I think it will um, AI and agentification of AI is going to impact jobs in terms of volumes. It is possible that this will be more pronounced in larger organizations because they will have larger budgets to deploy on AI, right? And therefore, for them, making it industrialized will become that much easy. So let's assume the kids here want to get into universities that you mentioned, and from there they want to get into the Microsofts and the Googles and the Metas of the world. I think that getting there might be that much more challenging, but they should find out organizations which are good, but probably have not deployed AI to that extent, because it is not, like I said, it is not going to be easy, right? The economics of it is not that easy to understand,
The
and
industrial implementation
it's
thing.
still away. So
Yeah.
get into organizations where they are not they're not totally blown away by AI and are deployed in every of their process. Get into the process very quickly, live those first 3-4 years, try to crunch that time, get to that maturity level, and then try to chase your dream. Never stop chasing the dream.
For
That's
sure.
the best part of careers, that it is not necessary that you always have to start at the bottom of the place. In some place, you start wherever you get invited, where you are respected for who you are, but earn your badges, and once again, and go back and knock the door which you wanted to be open for you. I think that's the secret of life.
Absolutely. So, Arun, I have lot many questions, but I know we are kind of closing towards 12:30. So I'll just pick few questions, and then maybe if you have time, we can extend it by 5-10 minutes more, if that's okay with you.
It's
Otherwise,
okay with me. I would, and also, so be if any of the students on the call, if they have questions, or if something has kind of struck them, if it struck a chord, I would love to listen to that.
great. So yeah, that's a reminder for our students. They can go live with their questions or they can put it in chat. And of course, we are recording it for other students as well, and even those who registered but couldn't join today. So I'll definitely share the recordings. Given I had the data in terms of students who registered, majority were high school, as I mentioned earlier, because
Mhm.
we generally do our career awareness session for high schoolers, but there were few college going
Sure.
kids too. Now, when we talk about high school students, Arun, what do you recommend that students can start doing today if they would want to explore like human resources as a career itself, maybe 3 years down the line, 5 years down the line?
So that's a tricky one, because life today, the rate of change in the environment is so fast that it's very difficult to predict how the
Hmm.
function will be 5 years down the line. But and therefore, I think it is more in terms of the philosophy of the part, right? So I think,
Mhm.
and again, it's unfortunate that it'll be that much more difficult for students in India, because doing this summer internships and stuff like that is a much more accepted way of grooming kids in the West, right? So, but I'm assuming that it will kind of pick up here. So I think first of all, I think anybody who has so the first thing that people need to understand, if there are these high schoolers, that all careers take you to the top. Okay, so you need to be good at what you do, and of course, there's an element of luck, but I won't overplay the luck part of it. Uh, But it is surely a part in the mix. And then what you need to do is you need to do a little bit of reading. There is a lot of digital content today in terms of certifications. small courses that are offered by good colleges, which are hosted on platforms such as Coursera. And Coursera is just one of them because it comes readily to mind, but I'm sure there are some zillion
Yeah.
other platforms. And I think it is important to start understanding the nuts and bolts of this function. Okay,
Okay.
and then in your own circles, you are high school students, your classmates, and um, if there are parents or elder siblings who are pursuing this profession, and we are
Mm-hmm.
talking HR, tomorrow it could be finance, somebody else could be an engineer. It is important for you to seek out these people in society, and talk to them and try to find out what is the construct of the function in the organization that they work. Okay, and not
Mm-hmm.
led by one narrative. There are, thankfully, India is a populous country, and therefore you'll have many people who are broadly in the same function and different organizations, because different organizations demonstrate different flavors. Right? It is important for you to have a fairly broad-based view of what this function is and not be driven by one person. Like, for instance, if your best friend's elder brother, graduated from one of the best schools and landed in one of the global MNCs, and on day one he drives a Mercedes to his work and wears a tie and a suit to office, doesn't mean that all HR professionals will have that, right? Somebody might be struggling to get into a metro also. Right? So therefore, create a data set which is larger than a few, and understand what the function is. So so the long and short of that is, talk to as many people who are in that particular function, and make a more considered view, right? I think it might not be a bad idea. You alluded to psychometry, right? Um, so there are some tools which try to find out who you are as a person. Okay, and the basis of modern day psychology is that people are they tend to get fairly hardwired as they are growing into adulthood. So there are some preferences. There will be life changing circumstances and things can change, but today's psychology says that you're fairly hardwired. Therefore, some of the psychometric tools, especially the ones which are very well validated, can point you to things that you might succeed at. And remember, the word is might. Will is never a word, because there are many other things other than your psychological stereotype. But
Mm-hmm.
you may succeed at some places, and it may also call out things that you may not succeed at. So use all those data points to kind of make sure what you don't want to be, and then and then make sure that as you from high school, I'm assuming is 10th class, right?
Ninth to 12th is the
9 to,
entire high
okay,
school.
you take the 12th class of the high school. Okay.
Yeah.
So I think it is important to, if you finally like what you researched, then it is important to actually align your education to that. Today you have those options, and like I said, at our times it was very binary. But it is so. I think so. Therefore, once you've spoken to people and stuff like that, make sure that you align your education there. But again, I'm saying that education is just one part of the jigsaw. It is okay. Let's assume there is societal, expectation, your family expectation, or you believe that you're very good in sciences and stuff like that. You want to get into engineering. Doesn't mean that you foreclose your option to an HR because of that. Because there's always a chance to come back. But it is important that through this period when you're actually not into a formal role, and is something that you're keen to do, it is important to stay connected with what is happening in that space
Mm-hmm.
by continuously talking to people. Try to pick up some internships. There might be some volunteering that might be available. Some of the NGOs might need help. If you can find time, go and help them with some of the things that seem like HR, and that gives you live experience. It gives you an understanding of what it is. Basically, you're building a body of work. Building a body of experiences. You're building a body of knowledge. over these 7, 8 years, which will then help you to transition into a role that much easily.
Correct. So, Arun, while you were responding to my question, I have received two questions in the chat. So
Mhm.
maybe we can take those if time,
Yeah.
if okay. So this is from Manmeet. How have you seen the role of HR evolve over your long career? What is the level of innovation in the domain?
So you remember I said I joined the public sector. When I joined the public sector, they used to call the role, forget what it is called, but let's start from there. They used to call the role personnel and administration. Employees were called personnel, PERSONNEL.
Mm.
And the function was more administrative in its outlook. So you had to maintain employee files. Basically, documentation had to be perfect. Everything was about everything was about running a set series of 2 or 3 events in an employee life cycle, but highly regimented, and it was an extremely back office function.
Yeah.
And and from there, and very compartmentalized at that. From there, things have kind of changed, evolved over a period of time. Today, I would I would say anybody who says HR is a back office function is horribly mistaken. I think it's a front and center function in an organization. And and like I said initially, size the seat is at the table. It's only for people who screw up who get ejected out of the room. But by default, if you have the capability, which means you have your subject matter expertise and you understand business, you have that for the asking, which was not there earlier, right? I think extreme from managing processes and documentation, it is about staying connected with people and enabling business. If you were to see the way the function has evolved, I think that's the most stark way in which I can kind of explain how it's changed. And just like any other function, I think innovation is absolutely at the hub of this particular function too. So how do you extract the maximum value for every second that you put into the function and every second the employees at the workplace? What else can you do? Remember, I talked about differentiation, right? Just like you as an employee needs to differentiate in order to catch the attention of, that's from you as a candidate, then you as an employee, right? Similarly, an organization needs to differentiate itself. To a person who's inside the organization, an organization needs to keep communicating why it is probably the best place for that person. Right? And for the candidate outside in the marketplace, it's important for them to say why they are one of the best in terms of the opportunities available.
Mhm.
So that is only possible if you continuously think beyond what is happening in the here and now. Because maintenance function is not going to take you anywhere. More of the same is not going to take you anywhere. Unless you think out of the box, unless you think creatively, unless you leverage technology, you're not going to go anywhere in life. So innovation is absolutely the kind of the underpinning of the function. Not only you need to be innovative, you also need to ensure that the organization continues to be innovative. So therefore, you are responsible to seed that thought and nurture that thought in the organization as well. So that's dual responsibility for the HR function.
Yeah, so it's more of like now more of a, as you said in the start as well, it's a very strategic role
Yeah.
to drive the organization forward, which was not the case maybe 20, 25 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah. The expectations were very different. At that time, the expectations were about you hold fort. It's important for me. Make sure that I don't get logged in court cases. Employees don't take me to the labor courts and stuff like that. That was the
Mm.
expectation. From there, you come and play with me. While that's become hygiene now, you have to maintain that. It's not as though you are absolved of that,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah.
But it's doing that is going to get you nothing. You
True.
now need to get to higher order stuff. That's how life has changed for the HR profession.
Mm. Uh, Mridula, I will read out your question, but I think in a way Arun has responded to that earlier. and also with his latest response to Manmeet. But still, I'll read that out in case, Arun, if you have anything more to add. So she says, good afternoon, Arun. How is AI likely to impact the HR function, given that a lot of HR functions involve process oriented work?
Yes, she's absolutely right. She's the fact that she's understood that HR is multiple processes. Therefore, impact of AI is likely to be high. Is something I, like you said, I said. The best way to take this is head on. You make sure that you understand how can you deploy agentification in AI and AI in HR. You should be willing to understand how you can. So one of the things that's going around. I won't say that I'm the author of that, but I'm surely a follower of that, in the sense that can you at every point of time, can you critically reevaluate your business process? Can you
Mm-hmm.
make it lean? Can you let go of things that you actually don't need to, without sacrificing the must-haves of the function? When we look in the here and now, we will build a solution to a problem based on our current understanding. And
Mm-hmm.
with passage of time, there is possibility of that becoming obsolete. So you need to be dispassionate in terms of throwing away your own creation. They call it the creative bias and stuff like that, right? You need to be able to let go of that creative bias, that you are the person who is responsible. Look at it in the here and now and see how you can re-engineer the process. When you re-engineer the process, make it lean and deploy technology into it. So therefore, you will be the person who will actually script the agentification of that piece. And therefore, you'll be left and center of
Mm-hmm.
of that particular reimagination of the process. I think if you sit on the corner and let somebody else drive for you, then it is very possible that we will that particular community of HR professionals will get extinct very soon. But if you leverage technology, if you are the person who's actually controlling or at least ensuring that you're in the center of all of it, I think these are the most exciting times.
For sure. Thank you so much, Arun, for answering Mridula's and Manmeet's question as well, and answering a lot of the questions which I curated. It it is a very interesting conversation which is going on, but because of the time limitation, I will have to put pause on it. But maybe we'll get another opportunity in future to host you and ask many other pending questions as well. On that note, I just wanted to share this slide with the students here with a message that HR professionals are everywhere across different industries. So, from my perspective, it is a profession which can open the doors in multiple industries for you, right? And as you see on the slide, I have also mentioned the kind of career opportunities which you have in this space, which Arun very nicely put it in the start itself when he was explaining the employee life cycle. But this is to really emphasize that within the HR domain, when someone says you like HR professional, it could be the subspecialties which you have to gradually think where you would want to build your career as well. Of course, being high school students, it's slightly early for you to know about these things, but given the tools we have these days, you can go ahead and do your own research now after this session. And as Arun also mentioned, what you can do now to really sense that whether this is the profession for you or not, you can deploy those resources as well. With that, Arun, thank you so much for your time today. Really, I learned a lot. It gave me a good perspective. And in my profession as an education consultant, I feel very happy in terms of interacting with professionals like you and bringing professionals like you to our students so that the authentic insights can always be given to them. So, thank you so much for sharing your time today. And with that, I would just want to close the session.
Thank you so much. Thanks a lot. And to everybody on the call, all the very best. I hope you land careers that you're actually dreaming of and make success out of it.
On their behalf, thank you so much, Arun. Have a good day ahead.
Thanks a lot. Bye bye.
Bye. Take care.